Before we begin our formal program, I would like to invite representative of our chorus to come and sing a few short songs. Come on.
עוד יש מפרש לבן באופק מול ענן שחור כבד כל שנבקש לו יהי ואם בחלונות הערב אור נרות החג רועד כל שנבקש לו יהי
I'm glad to see parents and alumni parents and past presidents of the school and past board members and current board members and community members. And each of you understands the boundless efforts that it takes to build and sustain a school that is a model for children from a diverse Jewish community. Our faculty and administrators work to discover each child's own switch and distinct strength. Our school is founded on ensuring that every single child who comes through our school doors feel cared for, loved, appreciated, and known. And our school is thriving. Over the past 4 decades, we have grown from a graduating class of 8 to being nationally accredited school and on its way to becoming an international baccalaureate world school as our community continues to work together in setting the school up for our long-term future. And a special thank you to Amy Kushmauer, the chair of the Endowment Committee, who you will hear from. They say that if you want to think of a year, plant flowers. If you want to think of a decade, plant trees. And if you want to think of 100 years, better educate children. So thank you for what you do and what you have done to help us educate children for the next 100 years and beyond. It's a big undertaking. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting Schechter. And thank you for what you are doing for the future generations of Jewish children. In the fall of 2015, we kicked off the 8th Endowment for Schechter with the goal of having $3 million in cash and legacy commitments by the spring of 2017 and $12 million by 2025. Just think, when we have $12 million in the bank, we will be able to generate $600,000 in interest for our operating budget every year in perpetuity. That is a game changer for a school of our size. That money can be used each year strategically to fund outstanding educational programming and to offset some of the pressure on tuition increases and tuition assistance. If we can raise more than $12 million, which is my goal, the endowment will have an even greater impact. But that's for down the road. We are here tonight celebrating that we have met and surpassed the first milestone with almost $3.5 million in commitments. Thank you all for your love of this school. Your commitment to Schechter has made and will continue to make a difference. Thank you for answering the call. May we and Schechter all go from strength to strength. Thank you.
I'm really thrilled to be here tonight, and thank you for having me to get a chance to talk about what Schechter really meant to me. It's no exaggeration to say that Schechter really shaped the course of my life and everything I've gotten to do since, professionally and Jewishly. And it's really wonderful to see so many of you basically being here today to make sure Schechter continues doing that for all the future generations of kids who, just like me, have the tiles on the wall that we all walk through to go to the library. And, you know, for me it was 14 years ago, some it's 5, 10, 25 at this point, but for all generations of Schechter students. Schechter was always great at incorporating simulation and experience into the classroom. And 2 examples for me always stood out. In the first, it was Miss Gottlieb, who obviously is still beloved here. We did the trial of Socrates. I had the chance to actually get to play Socrates, and I was fighting for my life. And I remember as the class debated, really hard philosophical, legal, moral issues when we were all, just in 6th grade. Questions that are as important to us today as they were back in those times. And in the second, we tried Dred Scott for running away, obviously another fraught, intense issue about the role of the law in our lives. And I got to be the lawyer who defended Dred Scott and got to fight against slavery. And I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever done up to that point. And I knew I wanted to be in a profession where I could argue for oppressed people just like Dred Scott. So it turns out that passion for me never went away. And the sort of law bug that I picked up at Salomon Schechter, it took me to Brown to study political science, and it took me to Harvard for 3 years to study law. But where I was really most grateful for my Schechter education, and a couple stories that I think are most relevant, is when I had the opportunity to spend a year clerking for Justice Kagan on the Supreme Court. As one of the justices for law clerks, we really did grapple with some of the hardest legal and moral questions facing the country, not just what Socrates was facing, but what we were facing in 2015 and 16. It involved, immigration, affirmative action, the environment. And I got to see why being a lawyer, and I know many people in this room are lawyers too, why being a lawyer really was so important, and the way that law shaped our lives each and every day. In big ways we see, in small ways that we don't. And I'd like to think, in truth, I really do know that my preparation for that job and for the experience I got to have there began long before I entered the Supreme Court building, long before I went to law school. It began when I learned about Dred Scott, when I learned about Socrates, when I learned about the sages debating law in the Talmud. It began in this room and in every room in this building where we're sitting today. But I'm really here today to say that Schechter didn't just have those impacts on my life. Salomon Schechter has those impacts on everyone's lives. Middle school students visited me in DC to hear about life at the court and to hear what it was to work in the judicial branch. And I was really stunned by their knowledge and their curiosity. It wasn't just that they knew so much about law or government, as important as I think that may be. Schechter was teaching them how to learn, how to be curious, how to figure out the role of their values in engaging with the world around them. So no matter what path these kids take after, those skills, that thirst for knowledge, will shape them forever. And I just know that at the end of the day, Schechter really left an indelible mark upon me, and it's doing that for generations to this day.
So all those from that community who 40 years ago had the audacity to imagine this school and then to make it happen, and for all those who put their arms around it for the last 4 decades and wouldn't let go, thank you. I say that as a parent and as someone who's been involved in the school. It is a remarkable, wonderful thing, and I feel very fortunate that my kids had a chance to go here. Thank you to all the faculty who do all the stuff that we see and all the stuff that we don't see, without which none of this would be what it is. And Amy, thank you. We've all had a chance to put our shoulder to the rock. It's a big rock and it's a big hill. And to do that and then to come back and do it a second time and a third time is somewhere between remarkable and insane. When I was in college, we had to read a book called The Fragility of Goodness. And we can debate whether fragility is an attribute of goodness or not, but I think we can all agree that fragility is not an attribute we want for this school. This school is a community resource. It is an important, essential thing. And unfortunately, the business model of the school is almost inherently fragile. And I think what this effort represents is an attempt to remove or replace or at least diminish the fragility. The other thing I want to say is that I'm the beneficiary of a Jewish education because the community made it affordable for my family. And without that support, I wouldn't have had a chance to go to a school like this. And I think as someone who's fortunate to be able to send my kids to the school, it's incumbent upon me and others to make it possible for others too as well. It is such an expensive proposition. It is so daunting for many families. And it is a better place for every family that's here. The diversity, religiously and economically and geographically, all those things are wonderful attributes for every graduate of the school. And I think this effort really is our chance to ensure that it's not just a great place for a small number of people who happen to be able to afford it, but it's a wonderful and accessible place for everybody in the community that wants to avail themselves of it. So thank you for supporting this if you have. Thank you for considering it if you haven't. If you've supported it, but you leave here tonight thinking I should have or could have done more, I promise you there's a way to do that.